Friends in the Corner, a new podcast experience in the bluegrass state of Kentucky. It's me, it's Dan Pauly, back at it with you guys for another episode of Friends in the Corner podcast. How you guys doing today? We're on here with episode 14. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We're happy to be back with you here for another week of Friends in the Corner podcast, and we hope you guys enjoy this week as we invite back Mr. Flakey Square, Evan Drysdale, back onto our show to do another installment of the So Here's the Story series. But we all hope you've had a great week so far, and y'all had a great weekend this last weekend. We had a fantastic one. We went out to Austin City Saloon and watched our good friend Rye Davis perform out there. If you want to see some videos that we took during the show, you can find them on our Facebook and Twitter page at FITC Podcast. That's FITC Podcast. We'd love for you guys to check those out there. But Rye did a fantastic show. If you want to see some of his upcoming shows, you can check out www.rydavis.com to see where he'll be performing in a city near you in Kentucky as well. And also, you can always listen to our interview that we did with Rye a few months ago in our archives on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, and Google Play as well. You can also find episodes we've done with the likes of DJ Otis Badass, Max Godby, Adam Banks from Off the Cuff. We've actually done 2 interviews with them. Businesses like Kentucky Blended Nutrition, West 6 Brewing, and A Cup of Commonwealth as well. And of course, we can't forget about Ryan Koch from Seedleaf also. You can even check out some of our original content we did. So Here's the Story series that we're going to be continuing today. Our bourbon reviews, our movie reviews, we've done just about everything you can think about, and we hope you guys enjoy this episode as well. But be sure to check out every episode, if you can, of Friends in the Corner podcast. And guys, before we get started into this episode of FITC, I do want to talk about what has gone on the past week here with Thousand Oaks and California in general. When we posted our last episode of FITC, it was on the same day as the shootings that took place out there. A armed man came into a bar, shot and killed many of the patrons at the bar. I believe I heard that there was actually someone that was in that bar that was also, unfortunately, in the shooting that took place in Las Vegas last year as well. So just some bad luck there, but truly just a true tragedy. And I have a little bit of a network out in California from a job, an internship that I did when I was in college a few years ago. So it kind of hit close to home to me as well. Not to mention, we don't even need to go into what's happened here with the forest fires that have impacted so many people's lives out there. They've had to evacuate northern and southern California in so many different areas because of it. And just a lot of tragedy, guys. So I hope you're keeping everyone in California in your thoughts and prayers these days. I know I am for many of my friends and former colleagues that work out there right now. I'm hoping that they're safe, and I'm keeping a thought out there for them as well. And, you know, when I started FITC podcast, Friends in the Corner, I had a mission for it in a way. I always wanted this podcast to be a form of positivity. I come on the show to hopefully create something you guys enjoy. I want to bring guests on that I want to highlight and encourage you guys to check out as well. That's why I love promoting Rye Davis, and I love promoting Otis and Max and all these guys that do come on my show. And just with so much negative content that's on the internet and just so much negativity we may hear in the news these days, I hope that FITC can be a bit of a distraction from what's going on in the world. And my goal has never been to make this a political podcast, and it never will be. I'll never share my political views on this podcast here. But just with everything that's gone on in the last year, 2 years, I mean, it feels like every day we get on here and I get on my Twitter and I see a new shooting that's taken place. A few months ago, I did an episode of our YTE series, and that was the day after the Jacksonville shooting. And I asked you guys to donate to a GoFundMe page that was there. And just here in Kentucky, we felt it. Marshall County. I working at BCTC, I gave a tour for a couple of Marshall County students the day before the shooting happened, and thankfully, all those students were safe. But that hit close to home. Up in Cincinnati, the shooting that took place at the bank there, my cousin actually works at that bank, so it just seems like when it should be getting better, it gets a little worse. And I'm hoping, I'm praying, and I'm pleading that there may be some change coming. I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm not here to talk about gun regulations or mental illness assistance or whatever it's going to look like. I don't want to get in those fights. But, man, I hope people are listening. And I hope we are more motivated than ever to try to look for something to stop this craziness, this senseless killing that we've seen, because it truly just numbs you, honestly, because a new shooting happens almost every month now, and you don't feel anything like you used to back in the day, and that's not good. That's not healthy. And so I hope we are going to move away from that and try to see how we can try to manage that a little bit better. That's the best way I can put this without going into my own beliefs and my own political thoughts. And I don't want to share that stuff on this podcast. As I mentioned, this is supposed to be a podcast of positivity. That's what it will be. It will be a distraction from maybe for many of you guys that need it, from what is going on in the world. And so all I just want to say is, guys, keep those people in your thoughts and prayers. And like I said, I hope this is the last time I ever have to talk about this issue on the podcast. I doubt it, honestly, with the way things have gone, but my thoughts and prayers are holding as strong as possible. But guys, that's enough of that sob story here. Let's get into this upcoming episode of FITC. So, during the October Originals, we did a series called So Here's the Story, where me and Mr. Flakey Square, Evan Drysdale, my good buddy from college, shared a couple stories with each other, got our reactions from each other, and presented them out to you guys. And you guys seem to really like that series that we did. So, we're going to keep that going. So, this week, we do Episode 3 of So Here's the Story, the Herr Wedding Tragedy. We hope you enjoy it. Here we go! All right, and we're back at it again with Mr. Evan Drysdale. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Glad to be back.
All right, Evan Drysdale, a.k.a. Flaky Square.
Come at me.
Well, dude, how have you been since the last time we had you on the show?
Pretty good. Doing really well. Chugging through school, working full time, so full schedules.
Yeah, we just had a beautiful time out in the mountains yesterday in the gorge for significant others.
Oh, yeah. We were out there hiking, trying not to fall down any cliffs. It was good times.
We were hoping to take some pictures, but what happened with that?
So I had gotten all of my gear together. We had our camera, had some nice lenses, battery charge, all the necessary components, except for the one thing you really need to, take pictures would be a memory card. So we got all the way out there. Wife turns on the camera, no memory card. So then I, kind of have to lug the rest of that weight around for a couple hours. So
then you were just stuck with this little 7-pound weight ball carrying around the rest of the time.
I was carrying around the 7 pounds of equipment, roughly. I mean, give or take 1 or 2. And then, the waters and all that kind of stuff. So I was very much the pack mule yesterday.
Yeah, I think it was Catherine who picked up your backpack, and you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, that was pretty heavy. I think we ended up with about probably 20 to 30 pound pack I was carrying, which, isn't terrible, but
it's not good.
No, it's not good. It's not ideal.
Ah, man. Well, man, we're happy to have you back on the show here, man. So, for those of you who are probably listening to the both of us for the first time, Evan and I started a series last month called So Here's the Story, where both of us came up with our own stories to share with each other and kind of get a reaction out of them. So mine that I shared with Evan was called Funtown Mountain, and the history of Funtown Mountain and Will Russell.
Yep. And the one I had followed a story I actually found online, so I can't take original credit for it. But it involved, it's called The Swamps of Dagobah. It's a horror show set in a hospital, if you will.
Yeah. So if you want to hear what we talked about in the last couple episodes, you can find those in our archives on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and
all the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. Yeah. And yeah, then you can hear all about Betta Bob and his geared up truck torquing that skylift up to the mountain.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Redneck engineering.
Or Swamp of Dagobah. I talk about it more here, but it's gruesome.
It's rough.
All right, but we're here to do another episode. So here's the story, our third episode here, where I'm going to share a story with Evan, a story about Kentucky, a historical moment in Kentucky, and just get his reaction out of it. So are you ready, Evan?
Oh, ready as I'll ever be.
All right. So here's the story of the Herr Wedding Tragedy.
I do not know what this is.
Do not know what this is?
I do not know what this is.
Well, last time I shared a story with Funtown Mountain, that was a fairly recent event. That was 2013, 2015.
Yeah, so the last couple of years.
Yeah, last couple of years. This is a little farther back. This is 1891.
Okay, so this is historic now.
This is historic now.
So this is potentially in that local interest section of the bookstore.
Yes.
It'd be in one of those history books.
I had to do some deep digging for this story.
Okay, so you went into that part of the library nobody goes to.
Well, I went on the internet. No one goes to the library anymore.
Well, the internet could be a library.
Okay. Now we're getting into some gray area here.
Yeah, semantics.
I do still go to my library where we did the NEAT review. I went to my local library to check out the DVD. So
support your local library.
Support your local library. Educational. But our story takes place in the 1890s in Linden, Kentucky, a town 12 miles east of Louisville. Linden began as a settlement alongside Louisville and Frankfort railroad tracks, and it was the only means of transportation to and from the city was railroad.
Okay, so we're outside 20 minutes?
Yeah. We're in that middle ground between Frankfort and Louisville. You kind of get lost to find it.
Okay, so yeah, I get what you're saying now.
Yeah. The city was founded by Alvin Wood, who owned 200 acres in the area, and in 1865 named the city. He came up with the name rights of the city and created what was known as the first Kentucky subdivision.
Oh, so this guy originated the subdivision.
Yeah, well, I mean, just in Kentucky.
Oh, so he stole the idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Kentucky was the first state, but he apparently here in Linden.
Linden, all right, okay, so he's got his own subdivision now.
Yeah. Linden is also home of the Kentucky Military Institute, which is created as the oldest private military school in the country.
Oh, so that's cool. Yeah. That's a fun little trivia fact for you.
Yeah, so they got some fun little stuff here. They marched the grounds here for the railroad and between Frankfort and Louisville military. But Woods and the Military Institute may be recognizable name or maybe remembered names in that city, but there is one name that is recognized in Linden, and that is Herr.
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 That's just a pronoun.
Well, yes, but in this case, it's a noun. It's a name, last name.
Okay, the Herrs.
I've been out of college for a while. So one of the most wealthiest families in the area was the Herr family, and the head of the estate was Albert G. Herr. Herr was a successful farmer that was recognized for raising prize-winning stock, which included cows, sheep, and trotting horses.
So is this the guy? No, this is not the guy with the 200 acres.
No, that's different. So we moved away from Alvin. We were just kind of setting up how this city was founded.
Okay, this is the Herrs.
Yeah, this is the Herrs.
Okay.
So kind of the best way to think about it is, and then my next point too is Herr or Al. So Wood helped found the city on the railroad tracks, and how the railroad tracks was the only means at that time to get into the city.
So he's Rockefeller.
He was Rockefeller, but Herr helped create the road system into the city. So we moved away from the railroad, starting to the age of the automobile. Herr helped develop the road system that took you from Frankfort into Louisville.
Okay.
So, yeah. So Herr got a lot of his recognition that way. So much so, he was so credited with creating the road system in the area that he has a road named after him in Linden called Her Lane.
Her lane.
Her Lane. It's her lane. Not your lane. Not my lane.
It's her lane.
Her lane.
Well, I mean, you're really not making it big if you have a city or a little road in a small town.
Do you have a road named after you?
No, but I'd rather have a road named after me in a big city.
Yeah.
I mean, look at MLK. He's got roads in every city.
Yeah, but, listen, no, I just want something. I've already got something named after me, but, you made it big when you have something named after you.
Oh, okay. I'll give you that point.
Shout out to UCLA for naming their basketball stadium after me, Pauley Pavilion.
That's not named after you.
Shut up. They don't know that.
Well, they named it. They should know that.
It's part of my heritage, Pauley's. Actually, I don't even know if we're related, but we'll take credit.
You're
for
claiming that.
Yes. So, anywho, the Herr family became one of the more recognizable names in this city for their contributions to the road systems. And after Albert Herr inherited his father's land, he built his home on the land called the Herr Mansion, along with his farm known as the Magnolia Stock Farm, where he continued to raise most of his award-winning
So wait,
animals.
the mansion is named the Magnolia Stock Farm?
No, he has the mansion called the Herr Mansion, but on that same land,
he has same property.
Yeah, he has the
Got
Magnolia Stock Farm.
All right, I was like, that's a very strange name for your mansion.
Yeah, well, and I was having a hard time trying to figure out why they call it the Magnolia Stock Farm, because Mississippi is the Magnolia State, so I don't know.
We still got southern magnolias in Kentucky.
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay, stupid question. What is that magnolia? Is it a metal?
It's a tree.
It's a tree. Oh, okay.
It's got a big flower on it.
Oh.
Those, the big glossy leaves you see sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a magnolia.
Oh, well, there you go. We learned something new today. Shout out to...
I knew it.
Oh. Well, I mean, I'm being educated.
You learned something new today.
Hey, I'm here to educate you, not
Oh, okay.
So, anywho, on this land is where he and his wife raised their 5 children: Aline, Albert, Gordon, James, Ada, and Fanny.
Fanny Herr.
And Fanny is going to play a very significant role in this story.
Oh, okay. I'm glad the person with the best name is the focal point of the story.
As they grew up happy and wealthy, Fanny eventually fell in love with a young man from Henry County, Winford Snook.
Snooks. We got the Hers and the Snooks.
Yeah, we got the Snook. No, just Snook. Like Star
just
Wars
Snook.
General Snook. So Snook was a part of a large tobacco-growing family, and it was believed that he knew Fanny since they were young, eventually falling in love with her and asking for his hand in marriage. The wedding took place on April 15th, 1891, and was held on the bride's father's land on the site of the Herr Mansion and the Magnolia Stock Farm, where the beautiful, lavish ceremony would take place that day. The wedding was attended by over 100 guests from around the state.
That's a lot of people in the day.
I know, in 1891 too.
That's like the whole village.
And these were very wealthy people, millionaires from the Louisville area. Hoity-toity. Yeah, there's a lot of money coming into Linden, Kentucky at this time.
Okay. Good for them. Good for the Hers.
Good for the Hers, keeping that recognition up. So the wedding was attended by over 100 guests from around the state. After the ceremony, the reception was held on the same land where the wedding party and guests celebrated throughout the day and night. They drank wine and spirits until their hearts contented and feasted on mushrooms, cake, ice cream, chicken salad, and other hors d'oeuvres until the end of the celebration.
So hors d'oeuvres.
What did I say?
Hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah, hors d'oeuvres. But there's a silent H in there, right?
Yeah, but you're saying the H.
Oh, sorry about that. Nonetheless, this is a pretty rich wedding.
Yeah, I mean, they got like butlers, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
Pretty fancy.
Yeah.
About on par with yours.
That was a good wedding.
We talk about your wedding pretty frequently on my podcast.
That's what I've noticed.
Have you listened to a couple episodes?
Oh yeah.
But anywho, so they had this beautiful reception, and then after the celebration, the bride and groom loaded a train to Niagara Falls on the way to their honeymoon.
So they're taking a train to Niagara Falls.
Kind of ironic since they created the road system, but they're using the train. They're using old school routes.
Well, I mean, I guess this is what, 1890?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta imagine there's not as many. The roads are not as connected because this is before the highway system,
Right.
before the interstate system.
Right. So yeah, maybe the train was at this point still the more reasonable, reliable route, especially if you're going to Niagara Falls.
Yeah, going across the country.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Absolutely.
go Rockefeller. Good for him.
Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful night that would soon turn terribly wrong.
This isn't going to be like the Red Wedding, is it?
No, not that gruesome. No.
Okay, all right. Okay.
But it does get pretty sad really fast.
It's like a game of Clue.
After the guests returned home from the wedding, about 70 of the guests became violently ill,
Oh God.
vomiting, fainting, and defecating at a massive rate.
I mean, this is like right after the wedding?
Right after the
Or
wedding.
this is at the wedding?
This is right after the wedding. So this is probably like the day after when they return home to their friends and family. Physicians rode on horseback fast from city to city and county to county to take care of the sick, even going to make house calls because of the number of people that were ill
Oh no.
in this area. The bride and groom were on their way to Niagara Falls, as we were talking
Yeah, so
about
it's
earlier.
Fanny and
Fanny and Winford Snook.
what's up? Fanny and Winfred.
Fanny her Snook.
Fanny. Fanny Snook. All right, Fanny Snook.
Fanny her Snook and Winford.
May she rest in peace.
All right. Yeah, so she is dead by now.
Yeah, well, I'd be surprised if she wasn't.
So they were on their way to Niagara Falls by train, but once they got to Cincinnati, they too became violently ill.
Oh, so they didn't make it far.
No, they didn't make it far. This made it up to Cincinnati. Well, I mean, I feel like at that time, making it to Cincinnati from Louisville was
But if you're on a train,
the train's not that fast.
well, it doesn't have to be that fast. It's still the next day.
Yeah, okay. So it took them a day to get to Cincinnati from
Okay.
there. But that's about as far as they made it, because they had to get off the train and go straight to a hospital.
Okay, yep. I mean, everyone else was seeing doctors, so I mean, it makes sense they would see a doctor.
They were sick, and Fanny sent a letter back home to her family to let them know about their condition.
Oh God! So I mean, the family. I mean, they were having the same problem.
Same problems, and now they know their daughter. Their daughter right to them, and it's like,
So everyone's
we
got
are
this
sick.
issue.
And they said,
Everyone's voiding themselves.
well, 70 out of 100. There's probably
So 30 resilient people.
30 resilient people.
Those are the people that you would have wanted to marry because they're the ones that have the good genes to pass down.
Good palate, yeah.
Yeah, iron stomachs.
Well, the local newspaper at the time, which was not the Courier Journal, I was about to say it was, but apparently it was called the Critic.
Okay,
A
little more forward.
The Courier
with their-
Journal got away with it this time.
Yeah.
So, but the local paper took hold of the story to let the public know what had transpired, stating the health of the bride, the groom, and the attendees, and citing, in their words, that the wedding party was poisoned.
Oh, so this is malicious then.
That's what they were assuming.
That's what the critic is saying.
That's what the critic is saying, and that's what eventually the father of the bride eventually thought too. So Albert,
so this is a poisoning.
yes, this is what they've come down to believe, that this was a
What do
poisoning.
they? What do they have to steal?
Well, what maybe it wasn't about stealing, it was about vengeance, as they point out. But
Oh, so we're getting into okay.
Yeah.
All right, I see.
But
I don't want to ruin the story.
because of the story that came out in the Critic, it caused mass hysteria in the greater Louisville area for people. So people were hearing about all these people getting sick, and they thought, well, if they're going to get sick, I'm going to get sick too.
Because
So
they're the rich people. The rich people are getting sick.
Yeah.
I mean, the poor people are always sick.
Yeah, but then they're thinking, like, if the rich people are getting sick, we're getting screwed now too.
Yeah,
So-
like if they're getting sick, we're dying.
right.
Especially in like modern medicine.
Yeah. So there's not a whole lot of research being done, but there's just this thought about a poisoned wedding going on, and people are like, well, who's responsible?
Some murderer out there.
Well, there were some assumptions that were made.
Okay.
One of the assumptions was made by Albert himself, that his servants at the time.
So Albert, is he the brother or the dad?
He's the dad.
Okay.
He's the father of the groom. So Albert, assumed that his servants at the time, and keeping in context, this is 1891.
Okay, so this is pre-emancipation.
Yes. So he had slaves and servants.
Or no, this is post-emancipation. Sorry.
Yeah. So he had slaves and servants, and he believed that one specific.
Well, they would have been slaves.
Are they servants then?
They would have been servants, but
Okay.
they kind of like You were my servant.
Gotcha. So these servants that he had, he assumed that they were the ones that poisoned the wedding for vengeance against him and his family. Specifically, he called out one specifically named Jim.
Jim.
Yep, Jim was responsible in his mind. So he violently went after Jim, saying, "You are responsible for the illness that we've come across here." But nothing was ever
on what
proven
grounds?
Just out of pure hate. I guess her was a dick.
Well, I mean, you don't treat people poorly in general, especially people that are working for you.
Yeah. Maybe some grounds. But this is just
maybe Jim is malicious. Maybe we just don't know the story.
Yeah.
But
that's about as far as that assumption goes. The other assumption was Fanny's sister. They don't cite which one it was, but they believe that Fanny's sister was trying to get with.
Wait, how many sisters were there?
Well, there's 5 children.
Yeah, there's Fanny's the youngest. Is Fanny the youngest?
They didn't state their age.
They just showed their names. Okay,
but there's Aline.
So it's one girl.
And Ada.
It's okay.
I think Ada died when she was a kid, so I think it was Aline. If we had to make assumption, because the other ones are Albert, Gordon, and James.
Okay, they probably didn't have like ambiguous gender names in the 1890s. So I'm assuming
Aline is a female suspect. They believe that Aline wanted to get with Winford. She wanted to be the snook.
Oh, so she wanted to snook.
Yeah, she wanted to snook. But because Snook took Fanny instead of Aline.
Aline would not having it.
Aline. So they believe she poisoned the wedding party.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Yes. But eventually, that theory died too. So we had Jim and we had Aline that were the suspects.
Okay.
And then during this...
all right, go on. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I'm trying to figure out the story, and I don't know where it's going.
You don't know where it's going?
No.
Okay. So we have these 2 suspects, and during this
Jim
time...
and Aline.
A total of 7 deaths occurred from the guest.
Oh, that's 10%.
During the first 2 weeks of the wedding. These included 2 aunts and uncles of the bride and the father of the groom.
Oh.
And also in those 2 weeks, Winifred Snook also died up in Cincinnati.
No.
Yeah, unfortunately, he also came down to illness.
Oh. So whoever's plot this was at least somewhat successful.
Yes. They killed these many people.
So this is what, 3 people or 4 people
that are
dead. Oh, you said 7.
7, yes. Plus the groom. So I believe this makes it up to 8 now.
Okay.
8 out of the 70 who were sick. So they were successful in killing some people. So many months passed, and there's still some undecisiveness of who could have killed him. Was it Jim the servant? Was it Aileen the daughter? But eventually some more research came out. Where they
by the Critic?
Not by the Critic, but by the University of Louisville.
Oh.
Yeah, that they believe came to the conclusion of who could have killed the family and poisoned the wedding party. So the University of Louisville did some research, and they believe they came up with who the culprit might have been. So was it Jim or is it Aileen?
I don't think it was either one of them.
And you were absolutely right.
Well, who did it?
Well, it's not actually a matter of who, but what. See,
so that's a trick question. You tricked me.
See, the culprit, the person what poisoned the party was the chicken salad.
Oh, God, I love chicken salad.
Well, apparently many of the guests there did too.
Well, they did until they didn't.
Apparently, the chicken that the chef used to make the chicken salad had been sitting out for over 2 days before it was prepared, being stored at room temperature. Because of this, the chicken had become contaminated with bacteria that had caused the illness and death.
How do they not realize? This is 1890. This is not like the 1400s or like 300 B or AD. This is like basically the modern time. We're pretty close to modern time as far as food goes.
Getting to the turn of the century here. But yeah, it was one of those situations where there's like the chef wasn't paying attention. He left chicken out for 2 days, and then he came back. There's like,
It's like, is it hiding behind the refrigerator? I mean, okay, they didn't have refrigerators, but is it hiding behind a cabinet or something?
Have you ever like?
I haven't forgotten chicken on a counter for 2 days.
Well, I mean, have you ever looked like something on the counter and you're like, it doesn't look super fresh, but you think it will suffice? Maybe that's what this chef was going through. I don't think we were getting the 5-star, Iron Chefs that we have today.
Putting my mind in the chef, he's like, "Oh, I probably just cook it long enough and it'd be fine." This is my French chef accent. Okay, so the chef's whodunit.
The chef's who's done it. Apparently, well, no, it's the chicken salad who technically done it.
I'm blaming the chef.
You're blaming the chef. I think most people would too.
Yeah.
It was determined
so.
that the poisoning that was given to the guests was actually salmonella.
Oh.
And the University of Local Medical School, who was a part of the findings and research, determined and claims that this was the first diagnosed case of food poisoning in the United States.
Oh, so this is significant.
This is very significant. This is the very first time that they've maybe not the first time food poisoning.
No,
happened,
definitely not the first time it's happened.
Documented. This is the very first food poisoning epidemic. Maybe not the right word, but case.
Yeah,
out there.
like widespread food poisoning due to improper food storage.
And it came at the cost of the Snooks and the Hers.
The poor Snooks.
Fanny her Snook.
Snook, I hardly know her.
So what happened afterwards? In 1898,
So 7 years later.
7 years later, Alfred the father passed away. And after that, Fanny Her, going back to her maiden name, Fanny Her, moved back to Louisville with her family, where eventually she got married in about the 1930s to a doctor.
Oh, she got married 40 years later?
I believe so. Let me see here.
I appreciate the well-researched article.
It's been a long day, man.
Well, no, I'm just saying I've listened to some other podcasts that they don't research anything.
So Fanny Snook
Yeah.
remained in Louisville and was listed in Louisville City's directory as a widow of W. Snook as late as 1916. Okay, actually, she remarried in 1917, so not 1930s.
Okay.
Don't listen to me. I'm not a professional.
25 years later.
Yeah.
26 years later.
To well-known physician Robert Burns Waddy of Lexington.
Oh, so we get a little Lexington tie in
Yeah.
there.
Sadly, however, Dr. Waddy died 4 years later.
Oh, well, she is just not having. Maybe she's the bad luck in this whole thing.
And on February 8th, 1930, Fanny Her Snookwaddle was found dead.
Snookwaddle.
Was found dead in bed at her home on Maxwell Street. In Lexington.
Oh, I wonder if the house is still there.
It might be. I'm not sure. Maxwell's a pretty long street here in Lexington. I'm assuming she may be down in the Chevy Chase area, if I had to assume. Well, that's very well.
Because I mean, at the time, I don't think the student housing would have extended all the way to where that student housing is now. You know, the houses that are
by UK,
closer to UK at that time, UK wasn't that big.
That's true.
So maybe she's on the house.
Yeah, but she was on Maxwell Street, so just around the corner right down the road from where we're.
So this is when you
around.
Can utilize your county clerk's office.
Yeah.
To do research.
Yeah. If someone wants to do the research for me, you can email me at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. That's friendsinthecorner, all together lowercase, @gmail.com.
Nice plug there.
Thank you.
So Fanny Her, that's who we need. We need to know what address she died at, and if we can still go visit the house to commemorate her.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, that is the story of the Herr Wedding Tragedy.
Oh, poor guys. Well, I'm glad that we, at least out of that, we've learned the fun fact about the first official military training camp
in Linden, Kentucky.
So you
can go visit that. Linden, Kentucky's still there. Oh, and the Herr Mansion is still there.
Oh, okay.
The Magnolia Farm is gone, but the Herr Mansion is still there as a historic landmark, as they have said in some of these articles I've been using, as a symbol of the tragedy that took place there.
Oh, so that's kind of morbid then.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I guess you can make it educational. This is where the first documented food poisoning took place.
So, okay, obviously, this is not a large enough landmark for a public school field trip. But if you're homeschooled, maybe.
Yeah, it's Linden. It's Frankfort and Louisville, between Frankfurt and Louisville. It's
I mean, you could hit the Capitol and then go to Linden right after.
Exactly.
That's a
You
fun
gotta
day
get
trip.
lost in order to find it.
Yeah,
But nonetheless, go check it out. But yeah,
I appreciate that.
fun stuff. Vanna here, Snookwaddle. It's really her dad's fault if we want the truth between all this. He's the one that named her
Fanny.
her.
Maybe Fanny is like a nice name 120 years ago.
I guess, but man, it was it made for a great story nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a good story. I appreciate that.
Anywho, well, Evan, thank you so much for being on this episode of Friends in the Corner podcast. And so here's the story. Do you want to tell them your social media one more time here?
Flakey Square. That's it.
Where can they find you?
Oh, pretty much anywhere. Instagram, you'll see pictures of my dog, my wife, some random trees. Facebook, I think hit search under the same thing. And Twitter. I don't ever post there, but I look at news on Twitter. So there you go.
And you can find them at Cup of Commonwealth and Chocolate Holler.
Yeah, I work there a lot too.
All right. Well, thank you so much, man.
No, thank you.
All right, and that's it for our episode of So Here's the Story of the Herr Wedding Tragedy. Thank you all for listening to this episode, and thank you so much for Mr. Flakey Square, Evan Drysdale, for coming back on to Friends in the Corner podcast here with me for this week. If you want to check out him, you can find him on social media at Flakey Square. You can probably also find him at Chocolate Holler or Cup of Commonwealth during the week as well. And remember, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FITC Podcast. That's FITC Podcast. You can also email show at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. That's Friends in the Corner, all together lowercase at gmail.com. And remember to check out all of our previous episodes on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and YouTube as well. Thank you all for tuning in and checking out the latest episode of Friends in the Corner podcast. We will see you guys again next week with an awesome episode. Hopefully Kentucky will have a win by then. You're never too sure these days. But we'll see you guys then. That's a wrap.